Why canned foods don't hit the same after 55. Let me ask you something simple. When you open your pantry and see rows of canned food, how do you feel? For many of us, those cans represent security. Quick meals, backup food, something reliable when you don't feel like cooking or when money is tight. Canned food helped a lot of us get through busy years, tight budgets, and long work days. It's familiar, it's convenient, and for decades, it felt safe. But here's the part no one really talks about. As our bodies change, the rules change too. Foods that barely affected us at 30 or 40 can hit very differently after 55. Not because the can suddenly became evil, but because aging bodies don't process salt, chemicals, and additives the same way anymore. Kidneys work a little slower. Blood pressure becomes more sensitive. Medications interact with food in ways they never used to. And canned foods sit right at the center of that problem. Now, this video is not here to scare you or tell you to throw out your pantry. That's not helpful, and it's not realistic. This is about awareness and smart choices. Because some canned foods quietly stack risks: sodium that overwhelms blood pressure meds, potassium swaps that can interfere with heart rhythm, can linings that leach chemicals. Regulators still argue about bacteria risks when seals fail, rare but serious. And the scariest part? Most of these dangers don't smell bad, don't taste strange, and don't come with warning signs. You can eat the same can you've eaten for years and only feel the effects much later. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 7 canned foods seniors should seriously limit or avoid, why they're especially risky after 55, and just as important, 2 canned foods that are actually smart, safe pantry staples. So, yes, there are good options. We're not ending this with fear, we're ending it with clarity. If you care about protecting your heart, kidneys, and memory as you age, go ahead and subscribe now. I break down food and health topics in plain English. No scare tactics, no confusing jargon. And let me ask you something real quick. Which canned foods do you rely on most right now? Soup, tuna, chili, pasta? Drop a comment below. I read them, and your answer might help someone else watching feel seen. All right, let's start by understanding why canned foods affect older adults differently, Mikes, and why it's not about one bad ingredient, but something much bigger happening behind the scenes. Let's take a closer look. Why canned foods become riskier? Salt medications, kidneys, and the stacking effect. Before we name specific foods, we need to talk about why canned foods can hit harder as we get older. Because the issue usually isn't one ingredient. It's what happens when several small stresses stack on top of each other. Think of it like this. When you were younger, your body was a strong sponge: extra salt, squeezed out easily, additives, processed and cleared faster, a one-off mistake, no big deal. After 55, that sponge is still working, but it doesn't bounce back as quickly. Sodium, the pressure multiplier. Most canned foods rely on salt for flavor and preservation. Might not seem outrageous, but here's the catch. You rarely eat just one serving. Soup, chili, pasta, meat in brine. It's easy to swallow 800 to 200 milligrams of sodium in one sitting. For many older adults, that's most or all of the daily limit. High sodium can push blood pressure higher, make blood pressure meds work harder, increase fluid retention and swelling. That's why some people feel off or puffy after salty meals and never connect it to the can. Potassium swaps, the sneaky replacement. When companies reduce salt, they often replace it with potassium chloride, sometimes labeled as potassium salt. For a healthy 30-year-old, that's usually fine. For someone with kidney disease or on common heart and blood pressure meds, it can be dangerous. Too much potassium can disrupt heart rhythm, cause weakness or palpitations, lead to emergency situations. This is one of those risks that doesn't announce itself. It shows up quietly and suddenly. Kidneys and aging, slower filters. Your kidneys filter everything you eat and drink. As we age, filtration slows. Recovery takes longer. Damage accumulates more easily. Salt, phosphorus additives, potassium swaps, and heavy metals don't just pass through anymore. They linger. That's why foods you ate for years can start causing problems seemingly out of nowhere. The stacking effect. Here's the big idea. Canned foods aren't usually dangerous on their own. But when you stack canned food, daily medications, aging organs, that's when trouble builds. Now let's look at a food that hits every one of those weak points at once. Processed meat in a can, a high-risk shortcut. Why Vienna sausages deserve a second look. Let's start with a food many people recognize instantly: Vienna sausages. Small can, soft texture, salty broth. For some folks, it's pure nostalgia, but for older adults, it's one of the most concentrated risk packages on the shelf. Armor Vienna sausages, and similar brands. Why seniors eat them? They're cheap, shelf stable, easy to chew, and fast. What's inside that causes problems? Extreme sodium load. One small can contain 700 to over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. That's up to 3/4 of a full day's limit, gone in minutes. For someone on blood pressure meds or diuretics, that spike can overwhelm the system. Nitrites and processed meat risk. Vienna sausages are cured with nitrites to preserve color and prevent bacteria. The downside? Nitrites can form nitrosamines, compounds linked to cancer. This is why the World Health Organization classifies processed meats as carcinogenic. Occasional exposure isn't the issue. Habitual use is. Phosphate additives. These help keep the meat soft and uniform. But highly absorbable phosphates, stress aging kidneys, contribute to artery stiffness, increase heart risk over time. Nephrologists consistently warn older adults to limit them. Low acid. Can plus botulism risk Vienna sausages are a low acid canned food? That means safety depends entirely on perfect sterilization, a flawless seal. If the seal fails, botulinum toxin gives no smell, no taste, no warning. Past recalls tied to packaging defects prove this isn't hypothetical. Can lining chemicals. Many cans still use linings that contain or replace BPA with similar chemicals. Regulators disagree on safe levels, which should matter to anyone with diabetes, hormone-sensitive cancers, heart disease. The bottom line on Vienna sausages. They aren't just a salty snack. They're a tight bundle of sodium, additives, processed meat risks, and packaging uncertainty, aimed directly at the weak spots of an older body. The can is small. The impact isn't. If this surprised you, take a moment and tell me in the comments. Have you eaten Vienna sausages in the past year? The healthy can. That can backfire. Canned tuna, mercury, and why frequency matters more than you think. Let's talk about a can. Many seniors feel good about buying. Canned tuna, it's lean, it's affordable. It feels like a smart protein choice when you're watching cholesterol or trying to eat lighter. And here's the truth. Tuna can be part of a healthy diet, but only if you understand the risks and limit how often it shows up on your plate. Mercury, the slow builder. Tuna naturally contains mercury. That's not a scare tactic, it's biology. The key point most people miss is accumulation. Mercury doesn't leave the body quickly. It builds up slowly in the brain and kidneys. That's why this matters more after 55. Memory and concentration are more sensitive. Kidneys clear toxins more slowly. Existing nerve issues can worsen quietly. And here's a detail that matters a lot. Albacore, white tuna, can contain up to 3 times more mercury than light tuna. If you eat tuna once in a while, that difference may not matter. If you eat it several times a week, it absolutely does. Histamine poisoning, not an allergy. Here's something many people don't realize. If tuna warms too long after being caught, bacteria can convert natural compounds into histamine. Cooking doesn't destroy it. Canning doesn't remove it. You can eat a perfectly sealed can and still feel flushing, rapid heartbeat, headache, chest, tightness. It can feel like a heart problem, and that's terrifying. Botulism, rare but unforgiving. Tuna is a low-acid canned food. That means safety depends on exact temperature, exact pressure, a perfect seal. When recalls happen, they're usually tied to lid or seal failures, not the fish itself. Botulinum toxin has no smell, no taste, no warning. For older adults, outcomes are far more severe. Salt and additives. Add to the load. Even drained tuna adds sodium. Flavored packs add more. Reduced sodium versions sometimes replace salt with potassium chloride, which can be dangerous for anyone with kidney disease or on certain heart medications. The tuna rule of thumb: tuna isn't poison, but it's not an everyday food for seniors either. Choose light tuna over albacore. Limit frequency. Avoid heavily flavored packs. Pay attention to recalls. Next, let's move to foods that feel like comfort, but quietly overload the system. Section 5. Comfort foods that quietly overwhelm the body. Soup, chili, pasta, and sweet fruit in disguise. This section surprises a lot of people because these foods feel safe, warm, familiar, easy. But for older bodies, they can be some of the heaviest hitters in the pantry. Canned soup, a sodium trap. Soup sounds harmless, but here's the trick. Most labels list nutrition for half a cup. Most people eat a bowl, sometimes the whole can. That can mean 1,000 milligrams of sodium or more in one sitting. Reduced sodium doesn't mean low, it just means less than before. Only low sodium, 140 milligrams or less per serving, truly counts. And watch for potassium swaps. Again, risky for kidneys and heart rhythm. Canned chili. Low acid, high stakes. Chili sits in the low acid danger zone for canning. When processing is perfect, it's safe. When it's not, consequences are serious. Add to that, extreme sodium potassium salt substitutes phosphate additives that stress kidneys. This is one of the riskiest shortcut dinners for seniors. Canned pasta, ultra-processed nostalgia ravioli. Spaghetti, meatballs. They taste like childhood, but act like ultra-processed food. These cans often include high sodium added sugar, phosphates, preservatives, processed meats. That combination is linked to heart disease, diabetes, higher overall mortality. Comfort, yes. Supportive of aging health? Not really. Canned fruit in syrup. Dessert in disguise. Fruit should be healthy, but fruit packed in syrup is closer to candy. 1 cup can contain 10 or more teaspoons of sugar. Light syrup is still sugar, just thinner. For seniors, that spike disrupts blood sugar, interferes with medications, increases heart risk. Better options, fruit in water or its own juice. Frozen fruit. The takeaway from Section 5. These foods aren't emergencies, they're habit problems. Once in a while won't hurt you, relying on them will. When vegetables lose their advantage in a can, why canned spinach and similar greens can be a problem. After 55. This one catches a lot of people off guard. Spinach is supposed to be a superfood. Strong bones, healthy blood, plenty of vitamins. So how could canned spinach possibly land on a limit or avoid list? The answer is simple. The can changes the equation, especially for older adults. Heavy metals, the quiet accumulator. Spinach is excellent at pulling minerals from soil. Unfortunately, that includes cadmium, a heavy metal that the body has a hard time getting rid of. Cadmium doesn't cause instant symptoms. It builds up over years, settling in the kidneys and bones. For seniors, kidney reserve is already lower. Bone density matters more. Recovery from damage is slower. Canning doesn't remove cadmium, it concentrates it. Sodium, a shocking amount for a vegetable. Many cans of spinach contain 600, 700 milliliters of sodium per cup. That's nearly half a day's limit from a vegetable. Even no salt-added versions can still carry significant natural sodium from processing. If you're managing blood pressure, that's not a small detail. Potassium swaps and medication conflicts. Just like soups and meats, reduced sodium canned vegetables sometimes rely on potassium chloride. If you have kidney disease or take ACE inhibitors, IRBs, potassium-sparing diuretics. That swap can push potassium levels too high, quietly and dangerously. Oxalates and kidney stones. Spinach is naturally high in oxalates, compounds linked to kidney stones. Canning does not reduce them enough to make spinach a safe, everyday choice for people prone to stones, which includes many adults over 50. Vitamin K, a balancing act. Spinach is extremely high in vitamin K. If you're on blood thinners, consistency matters. Large swings, like eating canned spinach one day and none the next, can interfere with medication effectiveness. Botulism and packaging reality spinach is a low-acid canned food. Safety depends entirely on perfect processing and sealing. If a can is bulging, leaking, deeply dented near seams, it goes in the trash. No tasting, no sniff test. The better option, frozen spinach, no can lining, lower sodium, same nutrients, faster prep. It's one of those rare swaps that's both safer and better. Now let's finish this video the right way, with foods you can actually keep in your pantry with confidence. The canned foods that are actually worth keeping, smart, safer. Pantry staples for seniors. After all that, here's the part most people are waiting for. Yes, some canned foods truly earn their place on your shelf. You just need to know which ones, and how to use them wisely. Safe pick number 2. Canned beans are one of the biggest exceptions in the canned food world. Here's why they work so well for seniors. They're pressure cooked during canning, which destroys dangerous bacteria. Once sealed, nothing new can grow inside. If the can is intact, the risk of botulism is extremely low. But the real win is nutrition. Half a cup of beans gives you solid plant protein, plenty of fiber, great for blood sugar and digestion. Iron, folate, and potassium. The sodium fix is simple. Drain and rinse under running water for 10 to 30 seconds. That single step can remove 30 to 40% of the salt instantly. Choose no salt added when possible, BPA free or BPA not intentionally added cans. Store in a cool pantry, not a hot garage. Beans are affordable, filling, and heart friendly, a rare triple win. Safe pick number one, canned tomatoes. This one surprises people. Canned tomatoes are actually safer than many fresh options. Why? Tomatoes are high acid foods. That acidity makes the environment hostile to botulism bacteria. Add in high temperature processing and tight seals, and you've got a very stable product. As long as the can is intact, no bulging, no leaks, no deep seam dents, the safety profile is excellent. Now the nutrition bonus. Processing tomatoes increases lycopene availability, an antioxidant linked to heart and prostate health. You actually absorb more lycopene from canned tomatoes than raw ones. What to watch? Choose no salt added varieties. Avoid potassium salt versions if you have kidney issues. Store cool to reduce lining breakdown. Glass jars or cartons are also great options. Final takeaway. Canned food isn't the enemy. Blind trust is. As we age, small details matter more. Sodium, additives, packaging, frequency. A few smart swaps can protect your heart, kidneys, brain, independence. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which canned foods do you rely on most right now? Did any of these surprises change how you'll shop? Drop a comment and your experience helps others. If this breakdown helped you, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss our next senior-friendly food guide. Your pantry should support your health, not work against it.